Hi there, it's Nicole from Lawn Fawn, and today I have a card showcasing a sweet Home for the Holidays scene created with the Home for the Holidays stamp set and the Little Town border die. I've also used lots of other Lawn Fawn dies and even another stamp set to create this snowy scene card. I'm going to start by die cutting some of the Perfectly Plaid Winter pattern paper using a small stitched rectangle die. This is going to be the sky background for my little scene here. Kind of hard to tell because once I get the vellum overlaid, you don't see the pattern as much, but you still get that peak of blue behind the mountains. While I have my die out, I'm going to go ahead and die cut all of the components that I'm going to need. So I'm going to die cut some narwhal cardstock with this same small stitched rectangle, some white cardstock with this rectangle. Make sure I get all of those pieces. And then I am going to go ahead and take my rectangles here and die cut the components I need to build the scenes from them. So from the white cardstock rectangle, I'm going to need a snowy border and also a mountain border. I'm using one of the stitched hillside border dies to die cut the snow that's going to go along the bottom edge of the scene. I like to use the rectangles or start with the rectangles because this way I know all of my pieces are going to be exactly the same. All of my pieces are going to have that great stitching design on them. This Little Town border, I'm going to die cut from that narwhal cardstock rectangle. I love this. It is such a cute border. So you can see what that's going to look like, and then you can put the snowy border right on front of that, just building up the scene components. I'll go ahead and grab that white piece of cardstock or the rest of it now and figure out how I want to die cut my mountains. And this is from the stitched mountain dies from Lawn Fawn. Awesome dies for scene building. I'm going to die cut the smaller of the two mountain ranges here. It has a few more mountains in this one. And there are the background components for my card. Now you're going to notice from the finished card to the card I'm working on here, there's going to be a couple of differences. There's a vellum overlay on the finished card, and I'm going to show you I originally did not plan on it. And I wanted to show you how I came to the conclusion that I needed to add something else to my scene. I felt it was a little lacking, and therefore I came up with the vellum overlay, which is one of my go-to problem solvers, I guess I want to call it. When I'm scene building, it adds that perfect layer. From some smooth white cardstock, I'm also die cutting the snow caps for my mountains. And now I've got my background components. I'm going to go ahead and put together my background. So I'm going to move a couple things out of the way. I'm going to take some mermaid cardstock and a dauber duo and just kind of put down a little bit of color on my mountain. I'm not going to take it all the way down to the bottom. It's mostly going to be concentrated right around the mountain tops. I wanted the mountains to be white, but I didn't want to do a white on white with the snow caps. And I also wanted it to kind of differentiate from the background a little bit. So I didn't want it to be too blue. I just wanted it to have a little bit of that blue color cast to it, I guess. And it's really going to help those snow caps pop off of the snowy border. I'm pouncing a little bit of the ink off on my background grid paper before I take it to my paper so that it isn't too dark. Once I have that ink all in place, it is dye ink, so anywhere it looks kind of maybe harsh or dark, it's going to absorb into the paper and really not end up being quite as dark as what you see here. Now this is where my first error came in. I placed the snow or the mountains too low. Then I placed the border too low. That really great little town border, where too much of the white border in the forefront is going to cover it up. Once you get the car in place, you lose a lot of those cute little houses. So I will have to fix that. And I did not restamp anything. I actually am going to use undo to take everything apart here in a little bit. I stamped the greeting from the Home for the Holidays stamp set using the Storm Cloud ink right there along the bottom on the snowy border. And I can go ahead and maybe stamp the car from the Home for the Holidays stamp set. It's an adorable little mini stamp set. I'm going to stamp that on a scrap of smooth white cardstock. I'm going to stamp the tree with the freshly cut grass Lawn Fawn ink. And I will color in the tree trunk with a brown Copic marker here in a little bit. And I'm going to color in my car with some Copic markers as well. All of my projects this month basically kept with this same aqua gray color palette, and this card is no different. The only thing I've done for this card is add some little red stamped hearts, and then of course the green Christmas tree that I'm going to place on top of the car. The car is in those same aqua shades I've been using all week long. The wheels are going to be some nice warm grays, as well as the rest of the accents on the cars, the hubcaps and the bumper and the exhaust. The windows do not die cut from this design. So I'm going to color in the windows with some lighter shades of blue markers and even a little colorless blender if I need it. Once I have this die cut, I am going to add some accents with a Stardust pen and a white opaque pen and finish with a layer of glossy accents to make those windows really look like windows. So I've die cut those images now, and I want to stamp that little trio of hearts from Home for the Holidays, kind of coming out the exhaust of the back of the car. So I've stamped those with some smooth, or with some intense Simon Says Stamp Intense black ink and colored them in with red Copic markers. And now I'm putting everything together. And this is kind of, I'm using a really strong adhesive. This is why I ended up having to use undo to take everything apart, because everything was just too crowded near the bottom of the card. There's not really a whole lot going on near the top. I didn't put the greeting up there. I don't have anything else. So I wasn't in love with this card at this point. And a lot of times, or more recently, I've been leaving in my mistakes because I'm hoping that when you guys make mistakes, you might see, oh, there's a way to fix it or things like that. And this is kind of, you can see the car covered up way too much of that home little town border. I did put the glossy accents on it. I did set this aside to completely dry for an hour or two, and I just wasn't loving it. And so when I came back is when I decided to go ahead and pull it apart, because I almost was at the point where I thought I was just going to trash this design and start from scratch, and I'm so glad I didn't. I did die cut several of the stitched rectangle frames, the A2 sized frame from the Storm Cloud cardstock, 4 of them in fact, and I'm going to stack them one on top of another to frame up this winter scene. And this is very evident that there's not enough going on at the top of the card. Visually, it's a little lacking. So what I ended up doing is stamping the snowy border from the Snow Cool stamp set on a piece of vellum. This is vellum die cut with that same small stitched rectangle die, stamped with Versamark, heat set with white embossing powder, and then I am simply going to put the background back together. All the same pieces, but the snow or the mountain border is going to go much higher. Then I'm going to add the little town border. Then I'm going to add the vellum with the snow falling down. And finally finish with my snowy border in front of that vellum piece. I'm hiding some adhesive behind some of the embossed snow dots there. putting something heavy on top to hold that in place until the glue dries. And then I'll go back in, add my little car, and that just finishes up the scene. It's so much more visually appealing. I love the falling snow. I love the hazy look the vellum gives, making it look like a snowy scene. So I kind of hope this has helped you maybe reevaluate or think about how you can work with a design that maybe you had in your head and it didn't turn out exactly the way you wanted it to, and maybe fix your cards yourself. I did go ahead and take the Merry Messages stamp set and stamp an additional greeting on the inside of the card. This stamp set is fabulous for adding greetings not only on the outside but the insides of your cards and finishing off the design. Thanks for joining me today for this awesome snowy scene card showcasing the Home for the Holidays stamp set and Little Town border die. The supplies I've used are listed and linked below the video on YouTube. Here are a couple more cards showcasing Lawn Fawn stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.